And we are live, live, live. Good morning to you all on this wonderful Monday morning, which is the last week, Vernon. It's the last week of the
Absolutely.
first quarter of the year. This is your last week of March. This is where you claw to victory. My brother, how are you doing?
I am doing quite well, actually. I'm not sure how things are looking on your end today. It's a Monday. I think for me, a weekend was quite reflective. We're doing a lot of analysis. What have we done? Strategizing, getting back on the drawing board. I think today we have a lot to do, especially that we're closing a quarter of it together.
Yep, and that's the important thing. What happened, Vernon? To I'm more handsome than I'm. Have you started to lose your confidence, Vernon? You
No, no,
usually give me
absolutely
the
not.
I.
I woke up with a very interesting call, and somebody calls me and says, "Well, there's an opportunity. Remember what we were planning. I think we need to expedite and push our monies in." My head is all around how we're gonna push it through.
Good, good, good. And that's the important thing.
Still
And today,
confident
Vernon,
though.
but no, as long as you're still feeling handsome, brother, as long as you do, that's the only way, man. Nobody's gonna tell you
Absolutely.
whether you're handsome or not. You just gotta feel that way. So today, it being Mindset Monday, brother, today we just want to make sure that we touch into some of the more pertinent points on building the correct mindset. You know that every time we get you through this, we do not go exactly as to our usual model of doing things, but we try and switch it up for the people. The reason why Mindset Monday is extremely important is because the everybody always wants to understand. Everybody always knows that the difference between the winners and the losers in life is the mindset that they have. Now that word is very vague. The word mindset is extremely vague these days because it's often used in the most vague. It's almost used in the most vague method. So today, Vernon, one of the things I want us to really address is what is the correct mindset. Okay.
Right.
So today we're going to be talking about probably what is the correct mindset, but I want to talk about the learning mindset. Tomorrow I'll be back when it comes to data and information for all those of you who are asking, where's Munyumba and all that data and information? Well, I don't always bombard you with it. I want you to start the week thinking correctly. That's the main thing I want you to
Absolutely.
do. I want you to start the week thinking correctly so that when you do get information, it's not guiding your life. It's just guiding whether you should make certain decisions and utilize certain methods. Okay. But we should have the correct structuring of our brains for the week. So today, Vernon, I want to talk about the learning mindset and the importance of it. And this is part one of the weeks we'll be going to when we're talking about the growth mindset, the actual full-fledged growth mindset. And people always wonder, what is the growth mindset? Well, I'm going to give you what was given to us by the Khan Academy of what exactly is a growth mindset and how does that actually function in terms of people. So let me share with you, Vernon, what is actually meant by the growth mindset. And we're going to pick on the first pillar of the growth mindset, which is the learning mindset. I don't know if I'm audible. Just give me a heads up, Vernon, if you can hear me.
Absolutely. Yes. I can get you loud and
Okay.
clear.
So this is something we call five principles of the growth mindset. And the five principles of the growth mindset is one, having the ability to learn. Two, overcoming the fixed mindset. Three, learning from mistakes. Four, being determined, and also we add resilience. And five, vision and goal setting. These are the five components of a person who has the right growth mindset as per the learnings of the Khan Academy. And what they've structured is the things that we need to be teaching people whenever you're looking at trying to give them to attain a growth mindset. The first one I'll talk to you about obviously is learning, but just in summary to all of them, learning, you are knowing that you are able to learn, understanding the impact of learning, and also that the learning can be applied in almost every spectrum of your life. The second one is overcoming a fixed mindset. What is a fixed mindset? What are the things you should do to come out of a fixed mindset? How do you break out of it? Learning from mistakes, what mistakes are, how you can manage them. And every single week, I'm going to use this as the governing theme. Because we're going into the second quarter, it's now time for you to start growing. And so I want to give you the governing theme. So for the next 5 weeks, we're going to be talking about this in the areas of finance. We're going to be talking about in the areas of assets. We're going to be talking about also in the areas of entrepreneurship and how this affects your future. Okay. We're also going to be taking a future theme. So these are your five themes coming up for the next week. yes, we're doing this in kind of like a series fashion to try and help people have a logical perspective, because after the next 5 weeks, we want to challenge people to have a growth mindset. Now, I want to just tell you one thing I got from the 5 a.m. club. There's a simple quote, Vernon. So to everyone here, we'll be looking at the learning mindset. But there's a simple quote that we got from Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. club, and I'm going to read this out to you because it's actually rather interesting. Sorry about that. Let me just get this. Whoops.
It's
um,
okay. Don't worry. At least
I
people are
don't know
looking
if
at
you
you.
can. I don't know if you can still. No, 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 no. But don't convince yourself that they want to look at you. Now you're just telling yourself fables. But but the important part I want to say is I want to give you a quick quote from Robin Sharma's book 5 a.m. Club, and it's something that I'm in the middle of, but still going through it. But here it is. He says, and this is in chapter 1 actually, and it says sorry, here it is. Ideas are worth nothing unless backed by application. The smallest of implementation is worth more than the grandest of intentions. Okay, so people always love consuming information because it makes them feel smarter. That's what information does, but it never actually makes your life improve. Having more information helps you feel more conversational, makes you feel smarter. But actually being able to apply it, whether to your life in your finances, whether to your life in your work, whether to your life in decision making as friends, like whenever you're trying to make career decisions, does this apply? Whenever you're trying to make money decisions, does this apply? How does this affect your ability to make decisions? Is how important the information you're consuming is, if not entertaining. And if you're consuming 80% entertainment, Vernon, you are just like a child eating ice cream for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You are going to be sick. That is the reality of life. So one of the things I just wanted to put to everyone is apply what we're going to be talking about. Now, the point of the first thing we want to talk about is the learning mindset. And I'll go through the first pillars here in the 5 principles of the growth mindset. The first one being the learning mindset. And here's what the learning mindset tells you. It tells you 3 key things, Vernon. 1, you are born to learn. You are an actual learning machine. Okay, everyone thinks that only computers, using this whole thing we keep talking about, machine learning. Where do you think
Yeah.
they got this thing from? Computers mimic your brain. The way a computer is learning, the way Chat GPT and all the stuff is learning, is actually based on you, and you, the individual, you and how you are actually learning, how you learned everything. I can tell you that you're a learning machine, Vernon. Were you able to
Hmm.
walk when you were born?
Absolutely not.
Were you able to eat by yourself?
No, no, no. You had to learn your way there after being, fed. Then you learned. Then you're able to eat by yourself.
Exactly. Any other bodily function and any other human function, you realize you had to learn it. So the capacity to learn is always there. I told a story once, Vernon, that I never, these ties that you can see a brother knows how to do right there. These ties here were a lesson taught to me by my brother when I was 13. Okay, he sat me down and for a whole day he trained me on how to make a tie. And he kept on teaching me over and over again on how to make a tie. And when I learned how to do it, he made me continue over and over again. So I stayed learning how to make a tie. And that lesson stayed with me for the rest of my life. And one of the things it tells you is that through mentorship and through constant trying, you can actually learn almost anything. Okay, so as a person, you have the capacity to learn anything. It's the desire that affects your ability to learn. It's not really a
Mhm.
capacity. Anyone can learn anything. Do people desire to learn these things? That's the different story, and that's where we differ as people. So the other thing about learning is you increase your mental capacity by practicing what you learn. So I want everyone to understand this. You don't just learn by absorbing information. You learn more because practice reinforces what you learn. So if I teach you something in investing in, let's say, a bond, by actually investing in it, you are learning more and more, and you're having now firsthand knowledge of how these things work. And because you're interacting with it, you even start believing in it stronger and stronger. So what you interact with. So don't let your learning be just a purely academic exercise. Take your learning and then apply it to the various areas. And it also helps you understand, is this thing relevant to areas of my life now? Or am I just
Mhm.
learning it for learning's sake? This is why I always tell people, Vernon, read books that are in your season. Think about a book like a seed, okay? The words of a book are like a seed. When you plant a seed, that is out of season, what's going to happen to that seed?
I mean, it's out of a season, so definitely you're looking at weather conditions which will not be favorable for that kind of a plant. Chances are high it's going to die.
So you should look at yourself as the soil, and what seeds are you planting yourself. So let me ask you, if you're at a point where you're trying to start a business, are you reading books about the philosophy of entrepreneurs, or are you reading books about startups? Are you reading the stories of people who have started businesses? Have you reading about the methods that people use? Are you reading about science of startups themselves, or are you reading about where people are in terms of growth and elevation? A lot of people find that the information that they're reading is out of their season. So each season depends on where you are in your life. So read for your season so that you can apply what you are reading. Okay, so the applications of what you are reading will reinforce what you have learned, and it'll actually turn it into wisdom. So this is why, for example, Vernon, sometimes I have been asked this question: how do I know as much as I do? Well, it's because I stick to the stuff I do. That's why a lot of my knowledge is based on, the lot of the knowledge I talk about is based on the stuff that I do for a living, people. The stuff that I do generally outside of even sitting on this microphone, the stuff that I do with clients, the stuff that I do in financial advisory, the stuff that I do in market analytics, the stuff that I do centers around what I know. And what I don't do, I try as much as possible to limit what I have to go around exploring in there. And the reason is it's not going to be applicable. So it's going to just end up being knowledge for knowledge's sake. Okay, so that is the purpose I want you to understand. Application actually increases the mental capacity and reinforces the information you learn. And you can also learn as long as you apply yourself. So as long as you're determined to learn, as long as you're consistent in the habit of learning about something, you'll see the importance of learning. You'll see the importance of how it plays out in your life and how it's applicable to areas of your life. So that's just the first principle I wanted to get everyone into your mind. One, you are a learning machine. You're capable of learning. Two, application helps reinforce the learning. And three, applying yourself to the learning process helps you actually be able to learn anything. And how is learning actually done? I want to show you a quick model, which is why I tell people investing is actually one of the ways that you learn how to invest more than anything. I was actually if you go to Y Combinator startup school, one of the first lessons they'll teach you, Vernon, is starting a startup is how you actually learn how to start a startup. Okay, trying to learn how to do it before, good luck. Starting it is actually one of the greatest learning experiences of it. But here's something that we actually have, something called the 10 the 10 20 70 model of learning. This should actually help you kind of devise what it is that you should be looking at in terms of how to learn as a person. And these are three simple pillars that a person can go through. One is we call formal education, or what we call instruction: classes, courses, structured programs, workshops, and learning material. Now, how much of an impact does it have in your ability to learn or what you've learned? Vernon, a whopping 10%. So even your whole degree, your whole education life has got 10% to do with the things you need to learn for your whole life. But here's what it does do. It's a critical 10% because it gives you the confidence to do the next thing. And the next thing is to interact. So you first get instructed, then you start to interact. This is called social education. This is getting a coach. This is getting a mentor. This is getting feedback from people. This is sharing stories amongst people, networking, doing induction training at a workplace, reviewing, collaborating with other people. Working within networks of people does educate you a lot, because now you start to see it in a social setting. Okay, so this is social education. And what this does is then it gives you confidence for the next stage. Once a person has been instructed and once they've interacted, now they feel comfortable to implement, okay, which is experience. So 70% of your learning is going to come from actually doing it, okay? Not absorbing the information about it. It's going to come from actually doing the thing. And that's doing it, repeating it, refining it, improving it, making mistakes, experimenting, problem solving, challenging, taking responsibilities sometimes, and finding that maybe you're not that great here. You have to improve yourself. You can only start to see the need to improve, by the way, Vernon, when you take on a responsibility. If you don't take on responsibilities, there's no incentive for a person to seek improvement and therefore need to learn. You often see that when people are just about to have a child, that's when they start buying baby books. Okay, nobody's buying baby books 7 years before they have a child. Nobody's seeking counsel on it. Okay, it's when someone is knocked up that is about the time to start buying baby books. Okay,
Yep.
and that's why people start seeking information when a child is on the way. And that's what responsibilities do, because they're now assuming an up and coming responsibility, and they've seen the need to try and improve themselves. They take innovations, they try new things, and they reflect. So this is how learning works. 10% of your learning is going to come from your instructions and education. 20% of your learning is going to come from interaction, but 70% of it is going to come from implementation and experience. So if you want to understand how to do this, you're going to have to go through these stages. But if you skip straight to experience, you're going to find that you need information to help you become. You're going to need information to help you become confident enough to try, because you're going to be struggling with your confidence. So getting educated gives you the confidence to interact. Interacting gives you the confidence to try. Okay, so there's an actual sequence you should be doing it at. So just because they've got lower percentages, that doesn't mean they don't have any importance. So people should really try and work on this as much as possible. So this is the learning model that I try and advise as many people to try and go through, even when we start in the process. Because whenever I start with people, let's say in the world of investing, Vernon, the first thing I'll tell them is get your mindset correct. In fact, one of the first sessions I'll do in investor education is mindset. Mindset adjustment is important because it is a journey you're about to go to, and you're gonna need the appropriate mindset for it. So that is what I mean when I say that you have to harness the correct mindset for what you want to do. So the reason why this is of importance, Vernon, is because we were talking last week about building career capital, and about making sure that you create a career that can give you the leverage to get the life that you want, or the career features that you are looking for. And those are very strong importance to you. So whenever you're looking for career capital, or in fact trying to build it, one of the best lessons that you can find, and I'm going to give you two examples on learning. One of them has to do with career capital. One of them has to do with early stage lessons. And I'm going to talk about, obviously, one of the reasons family is of importance, and why it's of devastation, Vernon, that we're seeing a lack of families in society. I'm going to give you the story of Magic Johnson. I don't know if you remember him. I know that you're a young man, but I don't know if you remember Magic Johnson, the former basketball player in the 80s, who was famous for the fact that, unfortunately, during his height of his business of his NBA career as an LA Lakers superstar, he unfortunately contracted HIV, but has been an example of what a person can do to actually live a very, very healthy life. He helped destigmatize it, especially after the death of Easy and many other famous people around the world during that time. So I don't know, Vernon, am I speaking old man speak, or do you remember Magic Johnson?
Magic Johnson, I've only heard stories about him, and not really, have had a thorough look at, his life journey and some of those interesting, things you're bringing out to me. It's news partly.
No, I understand. In fact, it's history to you. For me, this is memories. For you, this is history. That just shows the age difference between us. We have exposed the age difference between us, Vernon. But
Absolutely.
yes. But I'm going to give you the story of Magic Johnson when he was young. And here's a lesson that he learned from his father. So this is what I mean by the learning mindset. How a real life situation taught Magic Johnson a lesson that has stuck with him through his basketball career and his business career. So this is from his Bloomberg documentary on Game Changers. Just take a listen to this.
But his dad didn't cut him any slack. The two worked together on Irvin Sr.'s weekend trash hauling business. And one winter morning, Mr. Johnson taught his son a lesson that stayed with him for the rest of his life.
Some trash was froze in the ground, and he just raked off the top of it. So I just come around and told, get out of the truck and come on, I'll show you how to do this.
He grabs me and drags me in the snow back to where the barrels were. And he said, you know what, Irvin, if you do this job halfway, you're going to practice halfway as a basketball player. You're going to do your homework and be a student that is only putting in half the effort. And I was like, wow. So I want you to go get this shovel and chop the ice and get the paper that's stuck in that ice and dump it on the truck. Just then, my work ethic went off the chart because I became a perfectionist then.
Okay, so that's a lesson that Magic Johnson, who obviously this was when he was younger. He was still in high school. At that time, he was a high school. He was a sports superstar, and his father used to own a trash collection business back then. That was the black middle class, by the way, back then. They would own these businesses that were things like trash collection, paper delivery, all sorts of things. And those are the people who made up the black middle class. You can see that he was raised in a kind of black suburb because his father was a small scale entrepreneur. And generally, by the way, in any country, small scale entrepreneurs are the ones who make up a lot of the middle class. Because they're just between a lot of the working class and the professional class, because there's not that many professional jobs in the world. There's a lot of entrepreneurial jobs, and there's a lot of working with the hand-based jobs. So what he was teaching, what he took his son on the weekend and said, I don't care if you're a superstar at school, you're going to work with me on my trash collection route. I'm going to just segue for a moment, Vernon. This is the importance of a father. Okay. For a boy to take the journey to a man, he needs an example. And a lot of what we're struggling with, especially with the young male population, you're talking about, there are some things that are prevalent specifically to young men or men in general. Things like alcohol consumption. And I know people are going to show me some article where someone says women in Zambia consume 80% of the alcohol in this country is consumed by men. By men. That is data, fact, statistic, not your feelings. Okay. 80% of the alcohol in this country is consumed by men. Okay. Don't try and shovel the blame onto the women. You are Chakolwa United people, and you need to calm down on that. But the reality I will try and say in all of this is that one of the things we're seeing, the vices we're seeing in society, a lot of it has to do with lack of guidance. Okay. The journey from becoming a boy to becoming a man usually comes with the rites of passage that fathers usually offer their sons. Okay. Whether you're coming to work with me, if I'm a mechanic, I think last time you talked about a young man who's a mechanic. His father is a mechanic, and sometimes when the father is not there, you find that the kid is running the shop pretty much as if it's him. He's the one who knows the customers, knows everything. It's because his dad started a ritual of taking him with him to work. You are now my apprentice. Let's go together. Let's work together. So a lot of you, if you have that opportunity to be able to bring your child even on a weekend with you, okay, let's say you've got a job you can't bring your child to every single day, but maybe on a weekend you can make your child photocopy papers for you, help you try and get stuff together. If there are things you can do, and if it may not even be work, it could be fixing cars, fixing a TV, whatever it is, okay, whatever you're doing, whatever your manly duties are, perhaps you need to consider the lessons that can be learned from your son going with you. Okay. Because abandoning them, well, first we have to deal with the fact that guys have to first accept that's their child. That's problem number one we're still battling with in society. But those that do, okay, and which is still the majority, thank the Lord. We're not in a place where the majority of men are abandoning their children yet, but we are seeing a growing number, and that trend is not going to be very good. We're going to get to 40% probably by the end of this decade of children not being raised by their fathers. Or children not having a father around in their lives. And majority of those are just the case that the guys just walk the other way. But the reality that you want to try and look at is the lessons that can be learned from, you don't have to be a PhD holding father. Okay. You don't have to be a superstar in society. They're just things that your child will get from you. Okay. Work ethics, your child will get from you. Analytical skills, your child will get from you. The things that your child will pick up from you. My work ethic comes from the way I saw my dad. Okay, that's how I saw the man. He used to work really, really hard. Okay, and he still does. And I've seen him that whenever he goes into something, he really goes into it in a professional manner. That is the reason why I collect data the way I do. I manage my information analytics the way I do. That's why I always believe in my integrity of my information, because that comes from the lessons I saw from my father very early. So give your child exposure to the way the things are growing up. That is part of the learning mindset. Because if you listen to what Magic Johnson said, he said his work ethic went up and he saw the importance of doing things all the way. Just from a simple example of collecting ice. And think about Magic Johnson. He's not a kid, man. He was playing basketball in the 80s. This is a story being told in the 2010s. Okay. So this is 30 years after the end of his basketball career. Okay. And he's talking about a childhood memory with his father. And think about how long that lesson has stuck with him. That's why it says in the Bible, raise your children up and they will not depart from it. That is a critical example of a man who raised his child up in a specific way, and decades later, he did not depart from it. Okay? So if you're always looking and saying, where are the applications of the Bible? There it is, right there. There. It's right there for you. Okay. So the learning mindset is not just something that looks at school, formal education, and that stuff. Even parents training their children up in specific ways and characteristics, whether to do with money, whether to do with work. That was a lesson in work ethic because it affected the way he played basketball. It's affected the way he's run businesses. It's a work ethic lesson. Okay, so lessons like character building and work ethic lessons are going to be found a lot in the parents, in the how parents interact with their children and the things they expose them to. Parents have a tendency sometimes to just kind of throw their kids at school and run away from them, stick them in front of a TV, throw them at school, and then move on with life and try and get as much distance from their children as possible. But you have to understand that that child is your legacy. Whatever you leave behind onto this earth, you're going to leave it to them. That they're in the line of succession legally. People go and read the succession acts in this country. They're legally in line for that stuff. So if you abandon teaching them now, one, they're going to tarnish your name in society. When you are dead, they're going to tarnish your name. Let me tell you this, man. Somewhere along the lines, there was a Hitler before Adolf, probably, who was a decent guy in society. But Adolf has destroyed that name permanently. Okay, somebody didn't raise this guy properly because permanently that name Hitler is now associated with evil. But I'm sure before that there was a decent Hitler. Okay, there was probably a Hitler who was like the local barber, or he was just the local gardener, probably a nice guy in society, probably the local baker. Okay, I don't think like Hitler has been like evil throughout the society. But then that one guy took that whole name and ruined it for everyone. There were probably a bunch of people who went to like the German offices and changed. Like, I'm not that guy, so my name is now Harold. My name is now Hefner. You know, I've run away from the name Hitler. They ran away. What I mean is that your child can ruin your name throughout the rest of history. So if you don't raise them correctly, one, they'll tarnish your name, they'll kill your legacy, and they'll destroy your assets. Okay, so you have a choice to either take them with you and to now incorporate them into your life. So I think a lot of boys, Vernon, let me just be honest with you, a lot of young men are missing the rites of passage of having a father exhibit the journey from boyhood to manhood. And that's kind of affecting what we're seeing in terms of the outcomes of boys. They're suffering in school. They're not learning as much. They're resorting to drugs at higher rates, and their criminality issues, suicide rates. 80% of suicides in Zambia are men. Okay, so there's a lot of issues that are struggling here in society. So lessons that need to be learned in order for people to harbor a growth mindset. A lot of it also comes from parents. Okay, and I really want to harbor this point also, and I want to labor this point when it comes to fathers and boys. The second lesson I loved from Magic Johnson has to do with careers and exposure. So Magic Johnson, one of the things I really have picked up from his story is he has a learning mindset. He really does. He exhibits it. And I'm going to show you a piece of an example of how did Magic Johnson move from becoming a basketball player to a businessman. Because Magic Johnson owns cinemas, he owns restaurants, he owns property development. He's actually a very wealthy entrepreneur now. And he's one of the guys who made a very good, successful transition and showed a lot of the basketball players and the sports players, you need a business life outside of basketball to help continue you. But we talk about career capital. Magic Johnson was not a business person. But earlier in the story, and I'm going to take, this is not involved in the video, Magic Johnson used to clean the buildings of black business people. Here's one of the things you have to remember about the guy who talked about career capital. He said, the funny thing about people who are very good in areas, they seem to be, by some sort of luck or structure, be exposed to somebody who was a star in that field. Either they have parents in that field or they've met someone, and that person has given them a mind of what exactly a person in that field should be like. So when Magic Johnson was young and he was playing basketball, he had a job. He had jobs. He had a clerk job where he was filing papers, but he had another job where he was cleaning the buildings of black business people. Okay, so he had this image, and he met some prominent black business people when he was a cleaner for their buildings. And what happens to him is he gets exposed to these people, and the exposure to these people gives him insight on what a black entrepreneur can be like. So he has his growing up, he has this vision that, you know what, they are these things. They exist. Black people own buildings. They own businesses. They're things that they're doing in society. But then I want to talk about also how your career capital can expose you to certain things. So Vernon, you know the greatest Bible, the great Bible verse that we all like to quote: a man's gift will open doors for him and bring him before kings. Now, a lot of people are very gifted in society, and they often have opportunities to meet great people. The problem with a lot of people is that they don't take exposure as learning opportunities. Okay, you're very good at something. You're sitting at a dinner. Maybe you're a musician. You've been brought to perform at a business dinner or a banquet. You're sitting in a room with captains of industry, and you're a musician trying to think about, okay, when my industry ends, what's going to happen? These are people you can start mingling with, getting numbers. But some people are, I'm a musician, I'm above society, these people are beneath me, or I'm the star they've come here to watch, so I'm not going to learn anything from them. That happens, and I'm not blaming musicians only. A lot of people do this. Okay,
Yeah.
when you're a star in a field and you're amongst other people who are stars in their field, you tend to be driven by the star quality of you alone and not them. And what you have to understand is when you're a star in your field, it is going to open doors for you to meet stars in other fields, some that could be relevant to your development. And that is the opportunity, Vernon, to humble yourself. And humbling yourself doesn't mean thinking less of yourself. Humbling yourself means thinking of yourself less. When you take an approach, Vernon, in life where you think less, where you don't have to lower yourself. This is what people, I think, get with the business of humbling ourselves, because we thought sitting on the floor is humble. Sorry, that's
They
so funny.
have a different definition of being humble.
It's still funny to me. Because, I mean, even in the Bible, if you talk about humility, Jesus never thought less of himself. He would say, I am the resurrection. I'm the Son of God. I'm this. He actually believed in himself quite strongly. But it says in the Bible, he was humble. Humble means that he thought of himself less. He gave his life to service. Okay? That is what humility is. Humility is when you focus your life in service of others, and when you focus your life learning from others. When you think about yourself less, when you make life less about you, you start to learn more from people and you start to serve more people. So that is the important thing. When you think about you don't learn as much and you don't serve as much, and therefore you're not remembered in society. So when you are great, have a learning mind. Why? Because you're going to be exposed to people who are great in business, people who are great in other genres of music. If you're a great musician, you're going to be at award shows, and maybe somebody in a different genre who can now expose you to a different style of music and a different maybe production method. That is your opportunity to then expand your music capabilities. That's an example. Okay. If you are a great in the field of sports, you're going to meet great agents. You're going to meet a lot of things. Okay. So you're going to meet a lot of greats in your journey. Okay. And the question is, what are you going to do when you meet those greats? Are you going to puff your chest up and try to be the greatest in the room? Or are you going to take this as an opportunity to learn from them? Look, I'm a good analyst. Okay. But because I was a good analyst, it allowed me to start working underneath the tutelage of a person who was a good pension administrator. That man taught me everything about retirement planning, retirement calculations, retirement history in Zambia, how the laws work, how the system works, the ecosystem, everything. And now I transitioned from just being an analyst to being an analyst who can do advisory work. So you see how this actually expanded me. It grew me. It improved me and it developed me, and to a point now where today I can offer analysis and advisory services, and which is underpinning most of my career and my business building. But it came from the fact that I was good at something and it gave me the opportunity to learn from someone. So that is what greatness can do to you. So become very good at something, Vernon. It'll open doors for you to be amongst great people in other respects. And then it's time for you to learn. So I'm going to give you the video of Magic Johnson and how his basketball capabilities helped him learn. Okay. It actually helped him learn how to transition into business. And it actually tells his story.
On his other passion, business. Magic celebrated during the off-season by focusing on his other passion, business. He asked legendary super agent Michael Ovitz to help him learn the ropes, but Ovitz said no.
I was incredibly direct with him about what I thought about handling athletes, how difficult it was, and I said, we're just not going to get into the sports business even with you.
I went in 6'9", and I think I went out 5'9". You know, it was the first time Magic didn't matter.
But Magic didn't give up.
He started calling me every other day. And he came in and he said, look, I heard what you said. I want you to make an exception, and I want to learn.
He said, what part of the newspaper do you read first? And I said, of course, the sports page. He said, if you're going to be a businessman, you got to be the business section first. Wall Street Journal, Financial Times, Bloomberg.
And then I laid out for him that it would be like going to graduate school. And did he want that on his plate? Irvin looked me in the eye and said, I will do it. And I said, I will too.
So you'll notice that if he wasn't Magic Irvin Johnson, he wouldn't have had an audience with the #1 talent agency manager in the world. I mean, at that time, creative agency represents people like Steven Spielberg. It represents like all the big mega stars in the fraternities of Hollywood, music, everything. They represent these people. They draft their contracts. They draft everything. Now, he said, look, I don't want to go into sports. But Magic Johnson said, you are the #1 agent. And I have an audience with you because I'm Magic Johnson. And I want to learn from you. I want to learn how to run a business from you. But he would not have had that audience had he not been Magic Johnson. Okay? Because Magic Johnson during that period learned from people like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who were basketball players before him, people who he looked up to, who he saw going into bankruptcy. Okay, because they didn't manage their money properly. And he wanted to say he did not want that to be him. So he wanted to make sure he was making better decisions in the world of money and finance and business. So he goes into it saying, as Magic Johnson, I've built this brand capital. Okay, I've got this massive brand equity where my phone calls can get picked up, where I can go into agency rooms, I can meet agents, I can call them up and have direct meetings with heads of agencies. So if he had not been Magic Johnson, that door would have never opened to him. But to make the best of it, of being in the presence of greatness and getting exposed to greatness, you are not going to get there if you are not learn. It's not going to mean much to you if you're not learning. It's just going to be a picture where you're going to shake hands with someone and say, look at this picture on Instagram. I met this person. Oh, click, click, like, wonderful. But it's not going to mean much if you don't go in there with a learning mindset. Because if you go there trying to learn from that person, if you're sitting and you meet an entrepreneur and you're starting in life, you should ask them, what was your starting story like? Like, how did you start? What are the things you went through? Like, you've got an opportunity. I've had those opportunities where because I'm good at what I do, I get called for functions and occasions. Next to me will be somebody else who maybe is great in a much different field. And I'm curious to find out, how was that person's starting journey? What did they go through? What have they learned? What are the things they know? The things that I can see are relevant to maybe my career, which I can see they know. That is extremely important. You're going to have a silent moment with the person where they can intimately tell you things. As long as you're not going there asking for money, you can actually ask for help. Now, I'll give you an example. Steve Harvey tells a story of of this guy, what's his name, Smith, Robert Smith. Robert Smith is the richest black man in America. He runs a venture capital firm. He runs a private equity firm, and he's one of the few black private equity business owners. And Steve Harvey said, look, people only get 20 minutes with this man. So Steve Harvey goes into a room with him, and he said he flew. He said he got on the plane and he flew straight to go and see him, because he said, when you get a meeting with you go and take it. Okay, that is a $4 billion man. He's a black man. He understands everything. If he's going to give you 20 minutes of his time, you hop on a plane and you go and see him. So he went in and saw him, and then he started talking to him. Steve Harvey comes out 7 hours later. He said he spoke to the guy at the front. He said, look, I've been in there for 7 hours. You told me that, it's only like 20 minutes. And he said, you're the first person who never asked this man for money. Okay. And Steve Harvey's greatest lesson said there is that a lot of great people will offer you wisdom. They're so glad to give you their wisdom. They're more than happy to offer you their wisdom and their insights. The problem comes down to when you're asking for money. So if you can kind of hold off on that request and try and dig into insights, your exposure to greatness will be that you'll get the insights of the great people in society. So having that learning mindset, one, is good for early stage development. But the second reason is that when you've built enough capital in your life, you can get exposed to greatness. Now the question, and it will tell you one simple thing, Vernon: be of value. Okay? So maybe the question a lot of people should ask is this, and I know I've already gone on about this, is what value are you? Because I get 20-year-olds who say, I'm 20, I have not been working for years. Okay? So exactly what value can I offer? I think you need to look at the relevance of whatever season you are in life. And I'm going to show you something called the 3 stages of life. where you are in the 3 stages of life, and it'll tell you, yes, and there's a handsome fella at the top of this who's just guiding you through this, but there are 3 stages of life which you should look at and what you have to offer. And I say this, when you're young, you sell your energy and availability. Usually the people who need you lack energy, and they've got time constraints, and they need somebody who's available to execute tasks for them, whether it's photocopying papers, whether it's getting basic grunt work out. You're young, you're inexperienced, you don't have much knowledge, you know stuff from books, but you know very little about the world, but you do have a lot of energy and you do have a lot of availability. That is what you leverage. If you can come there with high levels of energy and availability for somebody in some way, shape, or form, you will be of value to that person. And they will offer, then they will shower you with information and knowledge that you will gain insights to. You will see papers and contracts that they have to sign that they'll make you deliver. You'll see things that most people don't see by making sure you offer your energy and availability. When you hit about 35 and you're going to 55, now you need to offer your mastery and creativity. What are the things you can create? People are coming to you, Vernon, because you've mastered how to do something and they don't want to hand it to somebody who's going to make mistakes, including themselves, or there's stuff you've created that they are incapable of creating and they want access to those things. So they're creations and masteries that you have done. And when you're older, your value now comes in what I call your legacy and your wisdom library. There's things that you want done beyond your life, and there's things that you have learned deeply. So these are the points of value that you have in your various areas. And should you excel in these areas, then you will tend to open doors into areas. I remember my first job, Vernon. I worked with the great Mrs. Nkanza, and she, when we reflected back on my time there, she said, when I hired you, you had energy. Like you had levels of energy where I thought this kid, we either have to put this somewhere or this is just gonna blow up in the middle of this place, because I was buzzing with trying to learn and everything. And she just said, look, we're gonna have to direct this somewhere. But presenting energy and availability to the tasks that she gave me offered me the opportunity, Vernon, to go into things like trying TV production for the exchange. I ended up sitting in meetings with her. I ended up sometimes going to sit at events for her and meeting people that were at levels I couldn't imagine. I squandered some of those opportunities because those are questions I could ask, but because I was in awe, So these are things that you can do when you are young. Be energetic and available. You'll be shocked how many people really, young people who are willing to learn, they're energetic, they're available. There is a gravitational pull when you are young to that kind of energy that the people who you are best likely to learn from. Now, they may not pay you the most. That's the truth. They probably won't pay you much, but they will offer you a lot more knowledge than you think. And people, you may not, when your friends are busy talking about, look at the latest car I have, look at the places I'm going, Instagram, your meager salary and stuff that you're getting when you're in your 20s is not going to allow you that life. And you're going to feel envious of those friends who are working in these institutions where they get to borrow for this stuff and flash this stuff. But the reality is, Vernon, 10, 20 years from now, in the long run, where things truly matter, you're going to be ahead if you truly took this opportunity because you learned a lot, networked a lot, and managed a lot. And a lot of those people are probably going to be in the same place because their growth levels are going to be slower than you. And, life should work for them. But the reality is, if you trade the learning opportunities in for higher cash and stuff like that when you're younger, the probability is that your career will stunt. It will stunt. Somewhere around your 30s and 40s, your career will stunt. Okay? While the people who took those learning opportunities early and struggled through them, their careers will expand. So I want you to just think about that as a very important tool for it. So we're going to be taking a journey.
Before you proceed to the next item, Twale, on that aspect of energy availability, mastery, as well as creative. First of all, thank you to our Luwinda, who's actually saying good morning, William, as well as Buddha on social media. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and just being part of the conversation. Now, you mentioned how, of course, we should probably make yourself available to learning and pick it up from those people who already are in the system. And magic had to take time to insist that, he learns and picks up whatever knowledge and wisdom he can from this guy. But then in my personal experience, I will tell you, I have a personal number of people in the industry, media, film industry, management of talent. Most of them, not even a 50, 60, no, but a good 90% have rejected or have just left me hanging when you go to them and ask them for guidance. Let me learn from you. I will voluntarily work with you just so I can pick up and see how you do it. I will not mention names, but if I were to mention names, you pretty much know at least most of them, but it is that transitioning, that mastery, letting others feed off you. I think that a lot of people who've gone ahead are quite missing, because I think it'll be easier for people. I treasure learning. I pretty much pride, picking up from other people who've gone ahead of me and taking time to see how we could possibly have the time, even once in a week, just 20, 30 minutes, an hour if you can. It seems to have been a challenge for most of them. And some of them just read your message, hear what you say, okay, I'll let you know. And it ends from there. I don't know, maybe you want to shed more light as well on that, because sometimes it's the people who the other folks who are not willing, seemingly not to give you a way or guide you or show you the way to really go about these things. I think there are some people, young people, who really are keen about learning, but just where to learn from.
So whenever I talk about learning and availability, energy and availability, I'm talking about service provision. Okay. So the first question you need to ask most of you, look, when you're dealing with people who are masters of their craft, first thing you need to recognize, Vernon, is their time is limited. Okay, we get asked these questions in some areas where it's, can you mentor me? Can you mentor me? Can you mentor me? The question is, what are you offering me? The reason I'm telling you this is, yes, people say, that's being greedy. No, for me to give you my time, okay, and for me to give you all this information, it's not a transaction. It has to be incentivized. There's a reason why, Vernon, if you watch Shark Tank, you'll notice that most of the guys who are pitching to the Sharks aren't really interested in their money. They want them. But what they've noticed is that if these guys don't put money in my business, they won't give it attention. So the question is, have you ever, you remember that Bible verse, Vernon, where your heart is where your treasure is where your heart is? Okay. So question is, what of value to them are you offering them? Because if you're offering them something of value, something that will save their time, something that will make life easier for them, whatever it is, if you're offering yourself to deliver value to these people, not to take time, not to derail them from their schedule, but to actually be part of improving their schedule, whether you want to run their social media for them, whether you want to do anything, but if you're offering something, that person is likely to sit down with you regularly, because now you're doing something of value to them. And while they're sitting down with you regularly, they're going to expose you to the way they think. They're going to expose you to the business they do. They're going to expose you because they have to, in order to help you do that thing for them. So the question my best advice I can give most people is, I was interning when I worked with that lady. So in other words, I could pick the stuff up because I was offering for things that she needed done. Okay, so the question you need to ask yourself is, and not everyone is going to say yes, by the way. Okay, so you're also going to have to accept that not everyone will say yes. And the problem with a lot of people is we rush in the digital era, we rush to the top people. Okay, there are people on the way up to this ladder. That's why I always say, remember last time I gave you the imitation ladder. List the top 5 people in a specific skill that you want to earn, and then start by learning from number 5. Well, perhaps maybe go to the number 5 person in that field, or the number 10 person in that field, and start learning from them instead of shooting straight to the top, because that person at the top is fielding many offers. Okay, they're fielding a lot of offers that you probably are now have to go and compete with, when maybe you could learn from one person, learn all that you can, and slowly move up to the next person, and slowly move up to the next person, working your way up to the exposure to the top. But being energetic and available means also offering something of value to them. What can you do with your energy and availability that this person needs? So listen to their needs. Is their social media page not being run correctly? And you know how to do it because you're good with running pages and running posts, and you kind of know the systems well. Offer that energy. Okay. When you offer that energy, that person will now sit down with you, probably have weekly meetings with you, because now their social media pages of value is being managed quite well. And they need that for their business. So I don't know if that maybe answers your question. That's the point I wanted to give you, that what can you start trading to gain that insight from that person? Does it give you a different way to try and approach it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, it does.
Yeah. So that's the best I think I can offer for most people is when you're younger. This is why I'm saying if you're running for salary, and I know it's a tough thing to say in an inflated economy and cost of living, and every young person wants to live on their own and get their car as quickly as possible. But if you're running for salary, you're going to sacrifice a lot of learning. You're really going to sacrifice a lot of the learning opportunities. And yeah, I'm sure there's the quick money, fast money, back crowd who are going to buck it down. But I'm telling you that if you sit down with most of the people who are where they are, these titans, even in the Zambian space, and you ask them how their 20s were, they will tell you they did a lot of learning. They will tell you they did a lot of paper movie. They will tell you they did a lot of simple things which gave them exposure to people of prominence. Okay, many of them did this. So if you and they did a lot of the grunt work, you are probably not willing to do, especially Vernon, those of us who have degrees. Those of us who have degrees have got a strong level of pride, okay, which unfortunately hinders the ability to do the simple things. And that salary pursuit can sometimes take you away from even learning from a person who operates a booth. Okay, think about it. Magic Johnson learned a lesson on work ethic from a man who runs a trash collection business, his father. That's humility to learn from anyone, okay, by going on trash collection runs with him when he was younger. He wouldn't have learned that lesson had he not said, "Oh, but I'm Magic Johnson, Dad. I'm the local hero football player and basketball player. You can't make me haul trash on weekends." No, hauling trash on weekends with his father helped him learn a very critical lesson, which has affected the way he runs his businesses and he ran his basketball career. So I think that's just something that a lot of people need to try and look at. That you need to try and get where you can learn. Yeah, that's where I'll put it. And Vernon, that's where I'll close it. Hopefully we've really hit on this growth mindset today, and we'll be talking about learning in finance tomorrow. We'll be talking about learning in terms of the asset world. We'll be talking about learning in terms of entrepreneurship and where the future of learning is on Futuristic Friday.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm sure our viewers, even online, had an informative sessions with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.